Actually, can you hear me if I go rogue to?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. Hello. I'm Matt Talbot. Yeah, I work at Brown & Company, which is down on scenic Islington Street, just far enough out of the fray to make walking downtown at lunch difficult. Yeah. Here you can see me in the Brown & Company environment. My colleagues editing photos for publication. We do a lot of cool stuff at Brown & Company. We do branding and logos and websites and publications and magazines and cool stuff. But I'm also a huge nerd. This is me in my natural environment, relaxing with an oversized, amazing Spider-Man art. I like comics and movies and video games and, you know, nerdy stuff, fun stuff. So, at night when I go home, I just switch computers basically and start working on other kinds of stuff. So what are we going to talk about today? Zombies. Okay. I have a website, mattrobot.com. Matt Robot because I like robots, and also because of squatters sitting on matttalbot.com and So when I do my extracurricular projects, I throw them up on my website and just let them be out there on the internets for people to find. I have a little note that just says, hey, I like to do cool stuff at night. Do you? Let's maybe do something. That would be cool. So a few years ago, this blog out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, I think, contacted me and they said, hey, we're the Zombie Reporting Center. We want some posters to sell on our site that have to do with zombies. And I was like, cool, you know what would be fun? Propaganda-style posters. You guys know, like World War II propaganda-style posters. They're big and bold and graphic, and they have catchy phrases and stuff. And I thought, what if you take out the Axis soldiers and replace them with zombies? So I did some of those, and that was a few years ago, and I kind of forgot about it. A few months ago, this magazine called SFX, The Road of Britain. If you're a nerd, you're probably a fan of SFX magazine. They're Britain's premier science fiction magazine. When I read their emails, I would read them with a British accent. It made it more fun. So they emailed me and they said, hello, chat. They said, hey, we love those zombie posters. Can we license them for you to run? We're doing a whole issue on zombies and we want to make this big poster. And I said, well, I sold the rights to those posters. I don't own them. But I can make you a new one, and actually it's 3 years later and I draw much better now. So and they were like, okay, well, here's the hitch. Drew Struzan is drawing a Walking Dead poster. Does anyone know Drew Struzan? He's a really famous movie poster artist. If you can picture in your head like Raiders of the Lost Ark that painted Harrison Ford, or the Star Wars posters, Superman, he did all of this. It's just incredibly awesome. So we're trying to negotiate with AMC, who owns the Walking Dead TV show, to do a poster. And if he falls through, we might want your services. I was like, cool, I'm the bridesmaid to Drew Struzan. And then they dragged their heels for about 2 weeks, and I forgot about it, and then they emailed and they said, oh, Drew Struzan fell through, and we need your poster, and we want it in 5 days. Okay.
I think we're just going.
So, I started doing some research, looking at all these classic posters, trying to think, you know, a good theme that I could adapt for the undead.
That wasn't meant to be the same.
And I have some great books at home, so online research, book research. And then it's sketching. You know, I just was trying to come up with catchy phrases and quick sketches. I'm primarily a digital guy. I do all my drawing on the computer. This is like the last stage of hand-drawn stuff, and usually it's chicken scratch that only I can understand. So that's my setup, my Iron Man. I draw everything on this handy Wacom tablet. It's like probably most everyone knows, but it's like a pen you just draw instead of using a mouse. You can draw right on the computer. It shows up. It's pretty cool. So the first thing I did for this project, I did a quick color sketch in Adobe Illustrator to send to SFX. This was on a Monday. They needed this stuff on a Friday, and they wanted to see things every step of the way. They said, we want to improve your concept, we want to improve your line art, we want to improve your typography, we want to improve your color. And they are like 5 or 6 hours ahead of us, so I would work until the wee hours and then email them something, and by the time I got up, they had had lunch and had reviewed my stuff, so I could do the rest when I got home from work that night. So I mocked up this sketch. I tried to think of a catchy phrase: one in the head makes the dead stay dead. Make your shot count. So aim carefully. Your life depends on it. And I gave him a note that said, hey, this is the 5-minute concept. I don't know. I mean, it'll have a big zombie head, it'll have flames, it'll have a legion, and other than that, anything's up for grabs. And they were like, cool, do it. So then it's off to the computer. So I started I made a quick sketch of the elements I was going to need. The first thing I needed was a big zombie head. Got out the way. I sketched pretty quickly. I created some brushes. In Illustrator, I can select them, and they look, instead of like a straight computer line, they have a little personality to them. So I started sketching a big zombie head. Then I started tightening it up after you get the basic sketch. I started going through and saying, I knew this was going to be pretty dark in terms of a lot of black, so I just started plotting out where my blacks were going to go, and that's what you see. So, so it looks sort of pen-like. It's I have some brushes I made with textured edges, and I have some brushes I made with like an ink line, like from a brush. I used to do a lot of brush inking before I really got into digital. I used to draw, I used to self-publish a comic book, and I used to ink the comic. Another one of my friends penciled it, and I inked it, and I did it digitally. And I had this guy, a big comic artist, come up to me at a con and say, you digital guys, you are the death of craft. Oh well. So this was looking a bit uninteresting to me. So there's this great site I go to all the time called CG Textures. And it's royalty free. Some guy, bless him, took photos of anything you can think of and made it a texture. There's a great splatter section. I grabbed some splatter, I vectorized that in Illustrator.
All the SV.
Yeah, that's now it's happening. Next up, I needed my zombie legion. And I wanted some photo reference for that because drawing a lot of figures is time consuming. So, I got the wife. I took some photos of the wife lurching around. Good zombie poses. Can I reference those in my Alright, let's fast forward a titch. So then I ended up with this composition. I knew it wasn't all the way there, but it was the end of the night, and I needed, line art to send to these guys in England. So I fired this off. I said, I don't have the type worked out yet. This is as much as I could get done tonight. This was a lot of drawing. You come home and you eat, you do dishes, and then your night's whittled away for zombie drawing. They said, Matt, that's okay. That's pretty good, but we don't like that zombie in the front. Can you swap him out? And I said, yes. This little guy. They didn't like bare-chested zombie with no face. So I replaced it with that. And at that point, I started tightening up placement because I started to get a vision in my head of where I thought I was going to put type. So I wanted the fonts. This thing was supposed to look like it was old from World War II. Actually, there's this great site called Letterhead Fonts. The fonts are pretty cheap. They're like, $20 to $40 for these amazing fonts. It's a great deal. And I did some research on what kind of fonts were around. I didn't want to, use some font that was invented in the 70s or whatever on something that was supposed to be old. So I bought a couple fonts here. I did some research and found out what kind of fonts were typically used, and I bought a couple fonts from the site. And I got my line art arranged with my type, so I was pretty happy with that arrangement. I went through several different iterations, fired it off to England, and they said, yeah, now let's see it in color.